let's get into how to play Spirits of Christmas at 2 players. So the main differences with 2 players is how many cards you're going to get dealt from the deck at the beginning of each chapter. So to set up the game before you start signing up the chapters, you're going to be grabbing the Spirit Action Rondel clock. You're going to place it in the middle with the give side up. I'll go over the other side at the end of the how to play. You can grab the 3 decks of the Spirit cards, past, present, and future, shuffle them up, and then we like to just place their meeples on top of them so they're ready to go for the next chapter. You're going to grab the 3 chain tokens, leaving them set aside. You're going to grab the shillings, make a supply. We're just going to have 15 here. Otherwise, there's normally the 20, but 15 is how many you need for the chapter. So we're just going to set those aside. You're going to grab the deck of Spirit cards, shuffle them up. You're going to grab the point cards, make a pile of them. You have your end of chapter scoring, your final scoring. You have the gift cards if you are using that option. That is all going to be based on difficulty and so forth. I will briefly touch on that at the end of the play through, or the how to play as well. You're going to find the bedroom. You're going to put it roughly underneath the Spirit Action one. You're going to find the Scrooge meeple. You're going to place him on top of it. Each player is going to get a player aid that has the different actions on either side. You are going to give the first player marker to the tiniest player, and then you're ready to begin. So before you fully begin, you are going to read this Marley's Ghost card to the players, and then optionally, if you are playing with the option of playing with gifts, you are going to select a gift either by randomly or by just selecting one. So to set up a chapter, you're going to set the torch aside. You are going to make sure there are 15 shillings in the supply, with the 5 others being started as a discard pile. You are going to grab whichever spirit you are on, starting with the past. You're going to grab their meeple, place in the middle of the rondel. You are going to shuffle up the cards, and then you are going to make the spirit card display. The spirit card display is going to be having 2 cards adjacent to the bedroom where Scrooge is, and then an even amount of cards on either side. You can go back and forth like this if you want, or you can just deal 4 off to each side, however you wish to distribute your cards. It's you. Do what you want. Again, make sure that this is shuffled, and then depending on the number of players, deal out a certain number of cards in a 2-player game. Each player is going to get 3 spirit cards. Then, if you are using gifts 1 or 3, there is something that happens at the start of each chapter. You can read the gifts and implement those when you play. I'm just going to teach you the basics of the game. So, the spirit cards, let's go over those really quick before I get into the official how to play of that. The spirit cards have 3 different symbols. You have compassion, contentment, and charity. They also have different numbers on top. Certain ones will have this symbol in here, which I'll get into more when we talk about taking your turn. Then, as for player communication, as I said, this is a cooperative game. So for player communication, that will be set based on your difficulty level you're playing. If you're playing with the normal levels of communication, which is considered virtuous, is you basically can use terms to indicate roughly how many you have, but you cannot say exactly how many of each card you have. You could be like, I have 3 cards, etc. But you can't say I have 1 contentment, 1 charity, 1 compassion. Therefore, you're going to use stuff like such as I have a lot, I have some, a little. If you have none of something, you can be like compassion, bah humbug, and that means you have none. So with that being said, let's get into player turns. So on a player's turn, they are going to move the spirit meeple to be able to take an action. On the first turn of a chapter, they are going to be able to move to any spot. So we'll say go ahead and move, and that's going to cost 1 coin. Typically, when you move the spirit meeple, it is going to cost a coin for every space you go through or into. So if I had moved down to here, that would be 2 coins. But so we'll start off with doing the move action. When you do the move action, you are going to look at the cards in your hand. You are going to discard one of them to move exactly that number of spaces in a straight line with no doubling back. When Scrooge is in the bedroom, he is adjacent to these 2 cards, so he can move there and go through, but at no point can he return to the bedroom, so I cannot go 1, 2, 3, for instance. So if this instance, say I discarded that and moving, I could go 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3. Likewise, if I'm already on a card, I would have to go 1, 2, 3, as I cannot move exactly 3 in that direction. So in regards to movement, let's look at the different types of spirit cards there are. There are three different types. There are these coin cards that depict these coins and the little card icon. When you land on one of these, you will take a coin or the denoted coin from the display. So in this instance, 1, in this instance, 2. Then if it shows a spirit card, you will draw a spirit card to your hand. You will then flip that card over. The next card is the Torch of Plenty. If you go to the Torch of Plenty and the torch is off the board, you are going to simply take it and place it on its place on the board. Again, flipping this card. I will cover the torch here in a minute. The last type of card are the shadow scene cards. These cards are going to have a requirement in order to complete the scene as depicted on the card. So for instance, this card here needs 3 contentment. This needs 2 contentment and a compassion, 2 contentment, and a charity. So those are the different types of scene cards. Next, we will go to the next spot. So this one is draw 3 cards. So that is simply you would draw 1, 2, 3. And again, because I moved a spot, we would discard a coin. You have a hand limit of 7 cards. At the end of your turn, any player who has more than 7 cards needs to discard down until they are 7, not just the active player. The next spot we'll go over is play cards. So to play cards, the active player needs to be on a shadow scene. At that point, you can play cards from your hand to the shadow scene. You must always play at least 1 card if you land on that spot, whether it matches the shadow scene or not. In order to play cards there, you're going to simply look at your hand. You know what? I have 2 contentment. I am on this shadow scene. So we are simply going to play these cards under the shadow scene like so. Again, in order to complete this, we would need 1 more contentment. The final action is give. At this point, with a give action, any player at the table can give any other player at the table 1 or more cards. That's it. So that's why at the end of your turn, you check everyone's hand for 7 or more, because if you give someone they're over 7, they'll have to discard. So those are the actions. There are a couple of special things with the actions. The first is there are certain cards that have this symbol on them. On your turn, I can play this card to instead move to any action on the board for only 1 coin. So typically to move here would be 2 coins. You are allowed to get to the same spot by going all the way around. So 1, 2, 3, so that would cost 4 coins. You could do this instead to stay there and do 1 coin. Also, I did not make it abundantly clear, you can move clockwise or counterclockwise. The other one is the torch. So if the torch is on the board on a player's turn, they can discard it from the rondel to do a bonus action. They can choose any action on the board. It does not cost a coin, and they do not move the spirit. They just simply take the action. However, once it's spent, you cannot regain it until you land on a Torch of Plenty card again. A face-up one, I should specify. So typically you can only have it once per chapter, once per spirit, etc. You are going to play until a chapter ends. A chapter can end in one of 2 ways. If a player needs to discard shillings and they are unable to discard shillings, you have lost the game. This is where Scrooge's chains come in. If you are running low on coins, so say you only have 1 coin left and you want to move 2, you can take one of the chains in order to get 5 coins. Bring them to your area, and then you would now have the 2 if you want to move. The other way that a chapter will end is once all of the shadow scenes are completed. In that instance, you have won the chapter and you're going to move to end of chapter scoring. You are going to grab point cards based on what's here. So for each coin card visited, so in this instance, we visited 1 coin card. So we'd grab a 1-point card, making sure to keep the proper side up because there are 2 points on the other side. You would then see how many coins do you have remaining. 1, 2, 3, 4. So then we would grab 4 points. And then if the Torch of Plenty was still up here, you would get 3 points. Otherwise, you would get nothing. After you do the scoring, You are going to discard all of these scenes for the current chapter. You're going to remove their meeple from the game with that. All cards in hand, any remaining cards in hand, and the discard pile will get shuffled to create a new face down deck for the next chapter. If the torch is still on the rondel, you are going to remove it. Then the first player passes to the next player. You would then set up the chapter again, just like we did the initial one, laying out the cards, dealing each player their hand of cards, replenishing to 15 shillings in the supply. Any change you take will stay with you because you are limited to only be able to grab 3 chains throughout the game. So again, you would then play that next chapter just like you did this one. If you run out of coins and don't have any more chains to take, you have lost the game. Otherwise, you'll score points again. You'll do this for the third chapter for the end or the Ghost of Future, the Spirit of the Future. If you won that chapter, you are going to score that again as normal, and then you are going to move into final scoring. For final scoring, you're going to add the number of points you have collected from the previous 3 chapters, and then based on how many chains you have taken, you are going to give yourself an additional number of points, either 18, 12, 6, or nil point. You are then going to compare it to the scoring titles that are in the book to see how well your group did. So that's the basics of the normal game. So as I said in the rule book right here, there are different modes of play from very easy all the way up to humbug. So the main differences is basically how many gifts you might start off with. So in very easy, for instance, you may use any number of gift cards. So I, in theory, could start with all 3 gifts. All 3 chains are available. You begin each chapter with the torch up there. So in that instance, if you use it and then land on the Torch of Plenty again, it can go back up there. And your communication is considered open-hearted, which means you're going to play with your cards face up in front of you. Then as the modes get progressively harder, it'll be different things like adjusting the amount of gifts you start off with, whether or not this stays on there or what happens with that, how many chains are available, your types of communication levels, etc. So like I said, the communication variants range from open-hearted, where you're playing open-faced, virtuous, which I've already explained. You have the miser. It's like that, but you can only talk about your hands on your own turns. You can't talk about it out of turn, etc., all the way up to none, where no communication at all, etc. The last variant I want to cover is the counting house variant. If you are going to play the solo mode like I will be doing, this is the board that you will need to do, and you'll be needing to use this variant. So you're going to use the other side of the Spirit Rondel as well. You'll see the 5-card symbol down here, and the give is now give or trade. You're going to have the counting house out here, and you're going to deal 5 cards to the counting house. So the main difference in here, you're going to play everything else the same, except when you go to the give or trade action, you can do the normal give action as normal. Otherwise, what you can do is you can discard 1 card from your hand and take 2 cards from the counting house, any 2 cards you want. So I could say take that. You would then refill the counting house as normal. Again, if this deck is out of cards and you have empty spaces here, you will just refill this as much as normal. You do not shuffle the discard pile. And there you go. That is the basics of how to play Spirits of Christmas. Like I said, the different levels of difficulty do add quite a bit of different rules on the chain usage and gift usage, etc. And there are the 3 different gifts that you can discover how they work on your own. All right, but if I could go ahead and get you to give me a like, subscribe, comment, share, ring the bell. Let me know your favorite version of A Christmas Carol. If you want to know mine, it's the Muppet Christmas Carol. In addition to that, if you are searching for board games, you can go ahead and hit up Miniature Market using our link down below. And if you use our link to purchase games from Miniature Market, we get a portion of those sales back here to the channel. In addition to that option, you can also go ahead and hit up Dubby Energy Drink. It's powdered. It's wonderful. It gives us a little pep in our step. You can use our link down below, or you can visit their website and use the code MEEPLES, which will give you a discount and us a portion of those sales. Alrighty, so bah humbug.